She thought he was her second chance, the man who'd love her children like his own, who'd finally give them the family they deserved. But the moment she moved into his house, everything changed. He didn't want to be a father. He wanted control. Control over her phone, her money, her time, her every move. What started as love turned into surveillance. Affection became isolation. Partnership became prison. And her children, watching, terrified, began to disappear inside themselves. The night he grabbed her wrist while her 10-year-old son stood between them, trembling but defiant, she finally understood. Staying would cost everything. Leaving might cost everything, too. But at least they'd be free. The morning sun filtered through the Venetian blinds of the small apartment in Riverside, California, casting golden stripes across the worn carpet. Jennifer Walsh stood at the kitchen counter, packing 2 lunchboxes with practiced efficiency. Peanut butter and jelly for 7-year-old Emma, turkey and cheese for 10-year-old Michael. The ritual was automatic now. 3 years into single motherhood. 3 years since David had walked out claiming he never signed up for this life. The apartment was modest, a 2-bedroom on the 2nd floor of a complex built in the 80s. But it was theirs. Jennifer had worked double shifts at Valley Medical Center, her nursing scrubs often still damp with sweat when she crawled into bed past midnight, just to afford this place. The walls were thin enough to hear the neighbors arguing, and the air conditioning wheezed like an old man climbing stairs. But the kids had their own room, and that mattered. "Mom, Emma's wearing my Dodgers shirt again." Michael's voice carried from the bedroom, high-pitched with morning indignation. Jennifer closed her eyes, counted to 3. "Emma, honey, we talked about this. You have your own clothes. But his shirts are comfier." The 7-year-old emerged, drowning in her brother's oversized jersey, her dark curls a tangled mess that would require negotiation and possibly bribery to address. "That's my lucky shirt. We have a game today." Jennifer intercepted before the argument could escalate, kneeling to Emma's level. "Sweetheart, your brother needs that shirt. How about we go shopping this weekend, just you and me, and find you something special?" Emma's lower lip jutted out, but she nodded, shuffling back to the bedroom. These moments, the constant mediating, the exhaustion of being both mother and father, the guilt that maybe she wasn't enough, they accumulated like sediment in her chest, heavy and suffocating. She was 34 years old, and sometimes she felt ancient. The knock on the door came at 7:15, exactly on time. Jennifer had met Marcus Hoffman 6 weeks earlier at a hospital charity event. He'd been there representing his construction company. Hoffman and Associates had donated materials for a new children's wing. He was 41, broad-shouldered with silver threading through his dark hair. And when he smiled at her across the buffet table, she'd felt something she'd almost forgotten. Seen. "Ready for school?" Marcus stood in the doorway holding a cardboard carrier with 3 coffee cups and a bag from the bakery downtown. He wore jeans and a pressed button-down, casual but put together in a way that suggested he cared about impressions. "You didn't have to do this," Jennifer said, but she was already reaching for the coffee, the kindness of the gesture nearly bringing tears to her eyes. When had anyone last thought to make her morning easier? "I wanted to." Marcus stepped inside, setting the bakery bag on the counter. "I got those chocolate croissants Emma mentioned last week. And Michael, I remembered you liked the ones with ham and cheese." Michael emerged from the bedroom, now wearing a different shirt, his backpack slung over one shoulder. His eyes narrowed slightly at Marcus. He'd been cautious around the new man in his mother's life, protective in a way that broke Jennifer's heart. At 10 years old, he'd already learned that men could leave. "Thanks," Michael said, the word careful, measured. "Dodgers fan?" Marcus nodded at the poster on the wall, a signed photo of Clayton Kershaw that David had given Michael before the divorce. I've got season tickets. Maybe we could all go sometime. I know the kids would love it." Michael's expression shifted, just slightly. A crack in the armor. "Really? Really? Family outing?" Marcus looked at Jennifer when he said it, and the word family hung in the air like a promise. Emma bounced into the room, now wearing a purple dress with mismatched socks, her hair still unbrushed. "Is that chocolate?" She spotted the bakery bag with laser focus. "Just for you, princess." Marcus handed her a croissant wrapped in wax paper, and Emma beamed up at him with the unguarded trust of a child who hadn't yet learned to be careful. They ate breakfast together, a strange approximation of normalcy that Jennifer hadn't experienced in years. Marcus asked Michael about his baseball team, listened attentively to Emma's rambling story about her friend's pet hamster, and Jennifer watched, cautious hope blooming in her chest, despite her better judgment. After she'd dropped the kids at Riverside Elementary, Marcus walked her to her car in the parking lot. The September heat was already building, that particular Central California intensity that turned asphalt liquid by noon. "I meant what I said about the game," Marcus said, his hand resting lightly on her lower back. "I want to be part of this, Jen. Part of your life. All of it." "It's a lot," Jennifer warned, the words she'd rehearsed a dozen times. 2 kids, crazy work schedule, an ex-husband who's barely involved. It's not glamorous. "I'm not looking for glamorous." Marcus tilted her chin up, his thumb brushing her jawline. I've dated plenty of women who had nothing but time and 0 responsibilities. You know what that gets you? Shallow. Boring. You're real, Jen. Your kids are amazing. This is what I want." She wanted to believe him. God, how she wanted to believe him. They'd been dating for 6 weeks, and already he'd integrated himself into their routine with remarkable ease. He showed up for Emma's school play, brought pizza on nights when Jennifer worked late, fixed the leaking faucet in the bathroom that the landlord had ignored for months. He was attentive, generous, present in ways David never had been. "My lease is up in October," Marcus said, the words casual but loaded. "I've been thinking, maybe it's time to find something bigger, something with a yard for the kids. I know we haven't been together long, but when you know, right?" Jennifer's heart hammered against her ribs, moving in together, the logical next step, or a reckless leap. She thought of the cramped apartment, the thin walls, the way Michael and Emma shared a room barely big enough for their twin beds. She thought of the double shifts, the exhaustion, the loneliness of doing everything alone. "That's fast," she said carefully. "Life's too short to waste time." Marcus pulled her closer, and she could smell his cologne, something woody and expensive. "I'm all in, Jen. With you. With the kids. We could be a real family. Isn't that what you want?" It was exactly what she wanted. The dream she'd carried since the divorce. Someone who would love not despite her children, but because of them. Someone who would show Michael what a good man looked like. Someone who would braid Emma's hair and attend parent-teacher conferences and share the crushing weight of responsibility. "Let me think about it," Jennifer said. But she was already imagining it. A house with a yard, a partner who came home at the end of the day, stability for the kids. Marcus kissed her forehead. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." But even as she drove to the hospital for her shift, even as she let herself imagine a different life, there was a small voice in the back of her mind, the voice of hard-learned experience, that whispered, "Be careful. You've been wrong before." She silenced it. She was so tired of being careful. They moved into the house on Magnolia Avenue in late October, just as the jacaranda trees were dropping their purple flowers across the suburban sidewalks of Corona. It was a 3-bedroom ranch style, with a fenced backyard, built in the 90s with that optimistic beige stucco that characterized Inland Empire neighborhoods. Marcus had insisted on paying the deposit, and first month's rent himself. I make more, it's only fair. And Jennifer had been too grateful to argue. The kids loved it immediately. Michael claimed the bedroom with the view of the backyard, already planning where to set up his baseball card collection. Emma twirled through the empty living room like a tiny tornado, her laughter echoing off walls that didn't share space with arguing neighbors. For the first time in 3 years, Jennifer felt like maybe she was giving them a childhood they deserved. The first month was a honeymoon. Marcus grilled burgers in the backyard on weekends, the smoke rising into the crisp autumn air while Michael practiced batting with a plastic ball. He helped Emma with her homework at the dining room table, patient with her 7-year-old logic and creative spelling. He kissed Jennifer goodbye each morning when he left for the construction office, and she'd watch him from the window, marveling at how quickly her life had transformed. But small things began to shift, so gradually she almost didn't notice. It started with comments about the groceries. Jennifer had stopped at Ralph's after her shift, picking up the usual staples plus the kids' favorite snacks. Fruit roll-ups for Emma, those expensive granola bars Michael liked. She was unloading bags when Marcus came home, his work boots leaving traces of job site dust on the tile floor she'd just mopped. "You went shopping?" He picked up a receipt from the counter, his eyes scanning the total. $240. It's the weekly shop. Plus I got... Emma doesn't need all this sugar, Jen. Look at this. Cookies, juice boxes, ice cream. You're setting her up for diabetes. Jennifer felt her face flush. I buy what they like. It's not every day. It's treats. I'm just saying, I'm paying half the bills now. We should probably discuss purchases over $100. His tone was reasonable, almost concerned. It's just good financial planning. My ex-wife nearly bankrupted me because I didn't keep track. The mention of his ex-wife, a woman he'd described as crazy and manipulative, always came with a warning edge, a cautionary tale Jennifer was supposed to learn from. She swallowed her irritation, told herself he was trying to help. Okay, we can discuss groceries. Great. He kissed her cheek, already moving toward the bedroom. I knew you'd understand. You're not like other women. You're reasonable. The second incident came 2 weeks later. Jennifer had planned to take the kids to her mother's house in San Bernardino for Sunday dinner, a standing tradition since before the divorce. Her mother had been her lifeline during the worst days, babysitting when Jennifer worked double shifts, providing the emotional support David never had. She was loading the kids into her Honda Civic when Marcus appeared from the garage, still in his weekend clothes. Where are you going? My mom's. I told you last week, remember? Sunday dinner. Marcus leaned against the car, arms crossed. I thought we could do something as a family today. I was going to take everyone to that pumpkin patch in Temecula. We can go next weekend. My mom's expecting us. You see your mom every week, Jen. His voice carried a note of hurt, carefully calibrated. I barely get time with you guys as it is. I work 60-hour weeks to help support this household. And on my one day off, you'd rather spend it with your mother? Emma was already buckled in the back seat, watching through the window. Michael sat in the passenger seat, his expression carefully neutral, a look Jennifer had come to recognize as him trying to become invisible. It's just a few hours. Fine, go. Marcus pushed off the car, holding up his hands in mock surrender. I'll just be here, alone, in the house I'm paying for. Don't worry about me. The guilt landed heavy in her stomach. She thought of him eating dinner by himself, thought of the down payment he'd made on the house, the groceries he bought, the way he'd absorbed so many of her financial burdens. Was it really so unreasonable that he wanted to spend time together? Mom? Michael's voice from the passenger seat, quiet. Are we going? Jennifer looked between her son and Marcus, feeling stretched between two competing needs. Let me call Grandma. She canceled the dinner. Her mother's disappointment was audible even through the phone, but Jennifer promised they'd come next week. They went to the pumpkin patch instead, and Marcus was wonderful, buying the kids hot apple cider, helping them pick out the biggest pumpkins, posing for photos that looked like catalog images of the perfect family. But that night, after the kids were asleep, Jennifer lay in bed replaying the interaction. When had she become someone who canceled plans? Who let guilt dictate her decisions? "You okay?" Marcus rolled toward her, his arm draping across her waist. "Yeah, just tired. I know I got a little touchy earlier. I just miss you when you're gone. Is that so wrong?" "No," she said, and she meant it. It was nice to be wanted, to be missed. David had never cared where she went. The third incident was harder to dismiss. Jennifer had picked up an extra shift at the hospital. They were understaffed in the ICU, and the overtime pay would help with Christmas shopping. She'd arranged for Michael to walk Emma home from school and stay with them until she got back at 7. At 15, her neighbor's daughter Sophia often babysat. Jennifer had known the family for years. She texted Marcus about the arrangement, letting him know she'd be late. His response came immediately. "Why do we need a babysitter? I'll be home by 5. Jennifer was in the middle of checking vitals on a post-op patient when her phone buzzed again. Then again. She ignored it until her break, finding 7 messages waiting. "I'm home. Where are the kids? Why is there a teenage girl in my house? You didn't think to ask me about this? I told you I'd handle it. Now I look like an idiot." Sophia's mother came over asking questions, super uncomfortable. "This is disrespectful, Jen. Call me when you get this." Her hands shook as she dialed. Marcus answered on the first ring. "What the hell, Jennifer? I texted you this morning. You told me you were working late. You didn't tell me you'd hired some stranger to watch the kids in my house without asking me." "Sophia's not a stranger. She's babysat before. And I did tell you I'd arrange care. You should have waited for me. I'm their father figure now. You're undermining me." His voice was tight, controlled in that way that felt more dangerous than yelling. "How do you think that makes me look? Some random teenage girl answering my door, telling me she's in charge? Marcus, I had to work. I made a decision." "That's the problem. You made a decision about our household without consulting me." A pause heavy with implication. "You know, my ex used to pull this kind of thing, making me feel like a guest in my own home. I won't do that again, Jen. I can't." The comparison to his ex-wife landed like a slap. Jennifer found herself apologizing, promising to run decisions by him, agreeing that, yes, she should have been more considerate. She finished her shift with anxiety coiling in her stomach, a feeling she couldn't quite name. When she got home that night, Marcus had already put the kids to bed. The house was dark except for the living room lamp. He sat on the couch, waiting. "We need to establish some ground rules," he said. And just like that, the rules began. By December, the house on Magnolia Avenue felt smaller than the apartment ever had. Marcus had compiled a list, house guidelines, he called them, printed on cardstock and magneted to the refrigerator where everyone could see them. Wake-up times, meal schedules, screen time limits, homework completion before any recreational activities. Emma's bedtime moved from 8:30 to 8 because 7-year-olds need more sleep than you've been giving her. Michael wasn't allowed friends over unless Marcus was home to supervise. "Structure is good for kids," Marcus explained when Jennifer questioned the rigidity. "They need boundaries. David clearly never provided any, and look how that turned out. Michael's grades are barely B's, and Emma has tantrums every time you tell her no." Jennifer wanted to argue that Michael's grades were fine, that Emma's tantrums were normal 7-year-old emotional regulation, but the words died in her throat. Maybe he was right. Maybe she'd been too permissive, too exhausted to enforce consistent rules. Single parents overcompensated. All the parenting books said so. The rules expanded beyond the children. Marcus wanted to know where Jennifer was at all times. He'd added her to a location-sharing app for safety. What if she got in an accident on the way to work? What if something happened to the kids and he needed to reach her immediately? When she hesitated, he'd looked wounded, confused why she'd object to something so reasonable. "Unless you're hiding something?" he'd asked, the question hanging in the air like smoke. So she'd shared her location. And then he'd ask about the route she took to the hospital, why she'd stopped at Target, who she'd had lunch with in the cafeteria. The questions were always framed as concern, as interest in her day, but they came with an expectation of detailed answers. Her phone became a point of contention. Marcus had a habit of picking it up when it buzzed, reading her messages. "I thought it was mine," he'd say, or "I saw it was your mom and wanted to make sure everything was okay." When Jennifer set a passcode, his mood darkened. "We're partners," he said. "Partners don't have secrets." "It's not about secrets. It's about privacy. Privacy is for people who have something to hide." His voice was "I've calm, given you complete access almost to my life, philosophical. Jen. My phone doesn't have a lock. My laptop is sitting on the kitchen table. I trust you completely. Why can't you extend me the same respect?" The logic was irrefutable, except it wasn't. Jennifer couldn't articulate why his openness felt different than her desire for boundaries, why his transparency seemed less like trust and more like a weapon. She removed the passcode. The isolation happened so gradually, she didn't notice until it was complete. Her mother called less frequently, tired of conversations that were cut short because Marcus needed something. The one time Jennifer suggested going out with her work friends from the hospital. Just a Friday happy hour, nothing wild. Marcus had supported the idea completely. Too completely. "Of course you should go. You deserve a break. I'll watch the kids." Then, as she was getting ready, "What are you wearing? That dress seems kind of revealing for a work thing." And later, "What time will you be home? Just want to make sure you're safe." And at 9 p.m., a text. "Kids are asking for you. Emma's crying. She had a nightmare." Jennifer had left the restaurant before appetizers arrived, guilt crushing her chest. Emma was fine, already back asleep when Jennifer rushed through the door. But Marcus looked so stressed, so overwhelmed. "I just couldn't calm her down without you," he said. "She needs her mother." She stopped making plans. Her friend Lisa from the ICU noticed first. "You disappeared," she said during a rare moment alone in the medication room. "We haven't seen you outside work in months." "I'm just busy. The kids, the house." The controlling boyfriend? Lisa's expression was carefully neutral, but her meaning was clear. He's not controlling. He's involved. There's a difference. Okay. Lisa's tone said she didn't believe it. "But if you ever need to talk..." Jennifer cut her off, maybe too sharply. She didn't need people who didn't understand putting ideas in her head. Marcus was committed, present, the exact opposite of David's abandonment. These were compromises, adjustments every couple had to make. But the anxiety lived in her body now, a constant hum beneath her skin. She started second-guessing everything. The way she dressed, was the neckline too low? The way she talked to male colleagues, was she being too friendly? The time she spent with the kids, was she spoiling them or neglecting their need for discipline? Marcus's reactions were unpredictable. Something that was fine yesterday would trigger a lecture today. The goalposts moved constantly. The worst were the silent treatments. When Marcus was angry, though he never called it that, he was just disappointed or hurt, he would withdraw completely. Days of cold silence, minimal responses, his physical presence in the house, but his emotional absence, creating a vacuum that sucked the air from every room. The kids felt it too. moving quietly, speaking in whispers, Emma asking, "Is Marcus mad at us?" With confusion in her wide eyes. Jennifer would apologize for infractions she didn't fully understand, for buying the wrong brand of coffee, for laughing too loud at something on TV while he was trying to read, for Michael tracking mud through the house, even though she'd immediately cleaned it. The apologies bought temporary peace, but the underlying tension never fully dissipated. Money became the most effective control mechanism. Marcus had insisted on combining finances in November. "We're building a life together. It makes sense." He'd opened a joint checking account, and Jennifer had deposited her paychecks alongside his. At first, it seemed like partnership, shared responsibility. Then she started noticing purchase requests that required justification. "Why do you need a new pair of work shoes? The ones you have look fine." Questions about every transaction. "You spent $40 at the pharmacy? On what?" Lectures about financial responsibility that made her feel like a child asking for allowance. "I'm making more than you right now," Marcus reminded her gently. "Someone needs to make sure we're being smart with money. You're working hard, I see that. But you're not a numbers person. Let me handle it." When Jennifer suggested she could pick up more shifts, build up her own savings, Marcus frowned. "You're barely seeing the kids as it is. You want to be gone even more? What kind of mother chooses work over her children?" The accusation stung precisely because it echoed her own fears. She was already stretched so thin, 12-hour shifts at the hospital, managing homework and meals and bedtime routines, trying to be present for Michael's baseball games and Emma's school projects. Adding more work hours seemed impossible, but having no financial independence felt like drowning. It was Emma who finally shattered Jennifer's carefully maintained denial. They were sitting on Emma's bed one evening in mid-December, Jennifer helping her daughter with a book report. Emma had been quieter lately, less effervescent. The sparkle that usually animated her had dimmed. "Mommy," Emma's voice was small, uncertain. "Does Marcus like us?" Jennifer's hand stilled on the book pages. "Of course he does, sweetie. Why would you ask that?" "He's always mad. At you, at Michael, at me. I try to be good, but I'm never good enough." Tears welled in Emma's eyes, spilling over. "I miss when it was just us." The words cracked something open in Jennifer's chest. She pulled Emma close, feeling her daughter's small body shake with sobs, and understood with devastating clarity. She'd brought this into their lives. She'd chosen a man who promised safety and delivered surveillance, who promised family and delivered fear. That night, after Marcus fell asleep, Jennifer stood in the bathroom with the door locked and finally let herself acknowledge the truth. She'd been making herself smaller, quieter, more compliant. She'd been teaching her children that love looked like control, that partnership meant submission. She was trapped in the exact pattern she'd promised herself she'd never repeat. The question wasn't whether she needed to leave. The question was how. January came with unusual rain, the kind that flooded the streets of Corona and turned the Santa Ana River into something dangerous. Water pounded the roof of the house on Magnolia Avenue, matching the storm building inside its walls. Jennifer had started planning in secret. A bank account Marcus didn't know about, opened during her lunch break with money she'd carefully skimmed. From grocery budgets and cash tips from patients' families, $40 here, $20 there. By mid-January, she had $832, which felt simultaneously like freedom and like nowhere near enough. She'd called a domestic violence hotline from the hospital parking lot, her hands shaking as she spoke to a counselor named Patricia, who didn't judge, didn't rush her, just listened and provided information. Safety planning, documentation, resources for emergency housing. The words domestic violence had felt foreign applied to her situation. Marcus had never hit her, after all. The bruises were all internal. Abuse isn't just physical, Patricia had said gently. Control is abuse. Isolation is abuse. Financial manipulation is abuse. What you're describing is a textbook case of coercive control. Jennifer had cried in her car for 20 minutes after hanging up. But she wasn't ready to leave yet. The logistics overwhelmed her. Where would they go? How would she afford first and last month's rent on a new place? The kids were settled in their school. Michael had made the baseball team. Emma had a best friend who lived 3 houses down. Was she being dramatic? Maybe if she just tried harder to meet Marcus's expectations, things would improve. The decision was made for her on a Friday night in late January. Jennifer had worked a double shift, a last-minute emergency when 2 nurses called in sick. She texted Marcus at noon, apologetic but clear. She wouldn't be home until after midnight. His response had been terse. Fine. She arrived home at 12:40 a.m., exhausted down to her bones. The house was dark except for a single lamp in the living room where Marcus sat, still dressed, waiting. The energy in the room was immediately wrong, dense with rage barely contained. Where were you? Not a question. An accusation. At work. I told you I had a double. I called the hospital. They said your shift ended at 11. Jennifer's mind stuttered. He checked up on her. I stayed late to finish charting, then stopped for gas. Marcus, what is this? This is me not being an idiot, and she realized he'd been drinking. Not drunk, but enough to make him reckless. I know what working late means. I saw how that doctor looks at you. That Indian guy in the ER. Dr. Patel? He's married with 3 kids, and I barely— Don't lie to me! His voice cracked through the house like thunder. You think I don't see what you're doing? Dressing up for work, wearing makeup, coming home late with bullshit excuses. I'm wearing scrubs, Marcus. The same thing I wear every day. Jennifer kept her voice level, aware that the kids' rooms were just down the hall. You're being paranoid. I'm being smart. I've been down this road before. Remember? My ex pulled the same shit. Working late, being secretive with her phone, making me feel crazy. Then I found out she'd been fucking her personal trainer for 6 months. I am not your ex-wife. Jennifer's exhaustion crystallized into anger. I've given you complete transparency. I share my location. You read all my messages. I canceled plans with my friends, my mother. I've done everything you asked. And it's still not enough. Because you're still lying. Marcus moved closer, and Jennifer instinctively stepped back. You opened that secret bank account. Yeah, I found the statements. What kind of partner hides money? Her blood went cold. He'd been going through her things. The bank statements were in her car, locked in the glove compartment. When had he searched her vehicle? That's my emergency fund. Emergency fund. He laughed, the sound cruel. You mean your escape plan. You're going to leave, take my kids, and run off with whatever money you can steal from me. They're not your kids. The words exploded from Jennifer before she could stop them. You have no legal claim to them. And I've stolen nothing. Every penny I put in that account came from my own paychecks. After I've been supporting this household? Paying for everything while you work part-time hours and spend money like water. His face had gone red, a vein pulsing in his temple. You ungrateful. The bedroom door opened. Michael stood in the hallway in his pajamas, his expression a mixture of fear and fury. At 10 years old, he looked younger in the dim light, vulnerable and brave simultaneously. Leave my mom alone. Go back to bed, Michael. Marcus didn't even look at him. This is adult business. You're yelling at her. I heard you. Michael's voice shook, but he held his ground. You're always mean to her. You're mean to all of us. I said go to bed. Marcus turned, and something in his movement made Jennifer's protective instincts flare white-hot. She stepped between them. Don't speak to him that way. He needs to learn respect. No, he needs to be safe. We all do. Jennifer's hands were shaking, but her voice was steel. This conversation is over. We'll talk tomorrow when you're sober. I'm not drunk. I'm clear-headed for the first time in months. Marcus grabbed her wrist, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to keep her in place. You're not dismissing me like I'm nothing, not in my own house. Let go of me. Or what? You'll leave? Run back to your mother? Tell everyone I'm the bad guy? Make me out to be some kind of monster, when all I've done is try to build a life with you. Emma appeared in the hallway now, tears streaming down her face, and the sight of both her children terrified by a man she'd brought into their lives crystallized every doubt, every moment of denial. Jennifer yanked her wrist free. Kids, get your shoes. We're leaving. You're not taking them anywhere. Marcus blocked the path to the front door. This is just like you, overreacting, being dramatic. Your kids see one argument and you're ready to blow up our whole lives? This isn't one argument. This is months of you controlling every aspect of our existence. This is you monitoring my location, reading my private messages, isolating me from my family, making me afraid in my own home. Jennifer's voice rose. This is you scaring my children. I'm teaching them structure, discipline, things they desperately need. But his eyes were wild now, desperate. Jen, come on. We can work through this. Don't make decisions when you're tired and emotional. Just think rationally for a second. I am thinking rationally. That's the problem. She turned to the kids. Michael, take your sister to your room and pack a bag. Clothes for 3 days. Do it now. Michael grabbed Emma's hand and ran. Marcus didn't try to stop them, which was somehow more frightening than if he had. He stood in the center of the living room, watching Jennifer with an expression she'd never seen before. Calculation mixed with something that looked like panic. If you leave, you're making the biggest mistake of your life, he said quietly. You'll never find another man willing to take on your baggage. 2 kids, barely making enough to survive. An ex-husband who wants nothing to do with you. You think you're going to do better than me? The words were designed to wound, to plant seeds of doubt. A month ago they might have worked. But Jennifer had spent too many nights awake, too many hours recognizing her own erasure, to fall for it now. Literally anything is better than this. She walked past him to the kids' room, helped them finish packing with shaking hands. Michael's face was set in grim determination. But Emma couldn't stop crying. Jennifer grabbed her own essentials from the bedroom. Medications. Important documents she'd already hidden in case of emergency. The bank statements that proved she'd been planning escape, even if she hadn't admitted it to herself. Marcus followed them through the house, his monologue shifting between anger and pleading. You're going to regret this. Where are you even going to go? You can't afford a place on your own. Your mother's house is a dump. You're going to drag your kids into poverty because of your pride. Jennifer loaded the bags into her Civic, while rain poured down, soaking through her scrubs. The kids climbed into the back seat, silent now, and she met Marcus's eyes one last time through the rain-blurred windshield. He stood on the porch of the house he'd used to trap her, and she felt nothing but relief to be driving away. The apartment in San Bernardino was barely 700 square feet, wedged above a Vietnamese restaurant that filled the stairwell with the scent of pho and grilled lemongrass. Jennifer's mother had offered her old childhood bedroom, but Jennifer needed independence, needed proof, to herself that she could build a life separate from both David's abandonment and Marcus's control. February brought fall spring, those warm California days that made people forget winter existed. Jennifer stood at the kitchen counter of the tiny apartment, making school lunches with practiced efficiency. Turkey sandwiches, apple slices, string cheese. The ritual was familiar, grounding. 3 weeks since they'd left. 3 weeks of sleeping with a chair braced under the door handle, because Marcus still had keys, and knew her mother's address. 3 weeks of Emma asking when they could go back to the house with the backyard, not understanding why they'd left behind her toys and her best friend. 3 weeks of Michael being too quiet, his anger at Marcus competing with embarrassment that his mother needed protecting. The divorce, because Jennifer filed paperwork to formalize the separation the day after they left, refusing to be tied to him legally in any capacity, was messy. Marcus contested everything, claimed they'd been common law married, that he deserved compensation for money invested in their household, that Jennifer had stolen from him. His lawyer sent threatening letters demanding repayment of rent, utilities, groceries. Jennifer's lawyer, a woman named Rita Chen, who worked pro bono through a domestic violence advocacy program, shut down each claim with clinical precision. "He has no case," Rita assured her during their second meeting. "You were never married. You contributed financially. He has no legal claim to your children or your assets. This is just intimidation." But intimidation worked, Marcus called at all hours. Jennifer blocked his number, so he called from different phones, left voicemails that alternated between rage and heartbreak. He showed up at the hospital parking lot, claiming he just wanted to talk like adults. Hospital security had to escort him away twice before Rita filed for a restraining order. The order was granted in mid-February. Marcus was prohibited from contacting Jennifer, from coming within 500 feet of her, the kids, or her workplace. The day the judge signed it, Jennifer sat in her car and cried with relief so intense it felt like pain. But the damage wasn't erased by legal documents. Emma started having nightmares. She'd wake up screaming, convinced Marcus was coming to take her away, that they'd be punished for leaving. Jennifer held her daughter through the panic attacks, singing lullabies from when Emma was a baby, feeling like the worst mother in the world for exposing her child to trauma. Michael, conversely, shut down. He stopped talking about his feelings, stopped making eye contact, poured himself into baseball with obsessive focus. Jennifer recognized the pattern. He was doing exactly what she'd done, trying to control something when everything else felt chaotic. She found him a therapist, a kind man named Dr. Rodriguez, who specialized in children of domestic violence. After the first session, Michael came out red-eyed but lighter somehow. And Dr. Rodriguez told Jennifer gently, "Your son was trying to protect you. He's been carrying adult responsibility. It's going to take time for him to learn how to be a kid again." Jennifer started therapy too. Once a week, she sat across from a woman named Dr. Sarah Kim and unpacked the layers of her relationship with Marcus. The love bombing beginning, the gradual isolation, the financial control, the way he'd use the kids as weapons. "You need to understand this wasn't your fault, Doctor," Kim said during their fourth session. "Abusers are experts at making you doubt your reality. You're not weak for falling for it. You're human. I brought him into our lives. I exposed my kids to him. And then you got them out. You recognized the danger and you left. That takes incredible strength." Dr. Kim leaned forward. "Most people in your situation try to leave 7 times before it sticks. You did it on the first try. Give yourself credit." But credit felt impossible when she was barely surviving financially. The apartment ate up most of her income. Childcare was expensive. She picked up every available shift at the hospital, sometimes working 60 hours a week, and still came up short. Her mother helped where she could, watching the kids after school, bringing over home-cooked meals, slipping Jennifer cash she couldn't really afford to give. In March, Jennifer swallowed her pride and applied for assistance, food stamps, Medicaid for the kids. The process was humiliating, proving her poverty to bureaucrats, justifying every expense, feeling judged by everyone who saw her using an EBT card at the grocery store. But the kids needed to eat, needed stability, Needed a mother who wasn't collapsing from exhaustion. The turning point came on a Saturday morning in early April. Jennifer had taken the kids to the park in Riverside, the same park they used to visit before Marcus. Michael was practicing batting with a beat-up aluminum bat, and Emma was attempting cartwheels on the grass with more enthusiasm than skill. Jennifer sat on a bench watching them, and realized they were laughing again. For the first time in months, her children looked light. Emma ran over breathless and grass-stained. "Mom, watch this." She executed a lopsided cartwheel that ended with her falling on her butt, and instead of crying or getting frustrated, she laughed. That full-belly laugh Jennifer hadn't heard since before they moved in with Marcus. Michael jogged over, his cheeks flushed from exertion. "Mom, there's a summer league sign up. Can I join? I know it costs money, but I could help. Maybe get a job mowing lawns or—" "Stop." Jennifer pulled him down to sit beside her. "You're 10 years old. You're not getting a job. If you want to play baseball, you'll play baseball. We'll figure out the money." "But I heard you crying last night about the bills." Jennifer's heart cracked. "Michael, baby, it's not your job to worry about bills. That's my job. Your job is to be a kid, to play baseball and do your homework and hang out with your friends, okay?" He nodded, but she could see he didn't fully believe her. The hypervigilance Marcus had installed wouldn't disappear overnight. That afternoon, Jennifer made a decision. She called her supervisor at Valley Medical and asked about the nursing scholarship program. The hospital offered tuition assistance for nurses pursuing advanced degrees, nurse practitioner, clinical nurse specialist. The coursework would be brutal combined with full-time work and single parenting. But an advanced degree meant better pay, more stability, the actual future. "You'd start in the fall," her supervisor said. 2 years of evening classes. We'd cover 75% of tuition. "I'll do it." When Jennifer told her mother, Gloria cried. "I'm so proud of you, Mija. Look at you, building something." "I'm terrified," Jennifer admitted. "What if I fail? What if I can't balance everything?" "Then you adjust. You always do." Her mother squeezed her hand. "You're stronger than you think. You got yourself and those babies out of a dangerous situation. You're rebuilding. That's not weakness, Jennifer. That's grace under fire." The kids adjusted slowly. Emma's nightmares decreased in frequency. Michael started smiling more, stopped flinching when Jennifer raised her voice even slightly. They talked about Marcus in therapy. Dr. Rodriguez helped them process what had happened without demonizing their own judgment. Sometimes people pretend to be one thing and turn out to be another. He explained to Emma during a family session. "That's not your fault, and it's not your mom's fault. Adults sometimes make mistakes about who to trust." "But we got away," Emma said, her 7-year-old wisdom cutting through. "We're safe now." "You are," Dr. Rodriguez confirmed, "and your mom made sure of that." By May, they'd established new routines. Friday night movies on the couch of their tiny apartment. Sunday dinners at Gloria's house. Michael's baseball games where Jennifer cheered louder than anyone, determined to be present in ways she couldn't when she was managing Marcus's moods. Emma joined a theater program at the local community center and discovered she loved performing, her natural exuberance finally given healthy outlet. The financial situation improved incrementally. A small raise at the hospital, tax refund that covered emergency expenses. Jennifer's meticulous budgeting, skills learned from months of accounting for every penny to Marcus, now deployed for her own benefit. The secret bank account grew slowly but steadily. Marcus violated the restraining order once more in June, showed up at Michael's baseball game, stood behind the fence, watching, until Jennifer called the police. He was arrested, spent a night in jail, and apparently that was enough to make the harassment stop. Or maybe he'd found a new target. Jennifer tried not to care which, tried not to wonder if there was another woman experiencing the same cycle. She reported him to every domestic violence database she could find, hoping to create a paper trail that might protect someone else. In late July, Jennifer started her nurse practitioner program. The first day of class, she sat in the college lecture hall, surrounded by students a decade younger, her laptop covered in stickers Emma had applied, and felt simultaneously ancient and newborn. The coursework was demanding: pathophysiology, pharmacology, advanced assessment, but she attacked it with the same determination she'd applied to surviving. Study sessions happened after the kids went to bed. Exams were scheduled around work shifts. She functioned on 5 hours of sleep and truly obscene amounts of coffee. But when she passed her first semester with a 3.8 GPA, she stood in the bathroom of the tiny apartment and let herself feel proud. Her mother threw a small celebration. Just family: Gloria, Jennifer's brother Antonio, the kids. But Gloria made Jennifer's favorite foods, and Antonio brought a cake, and everyone toasted to her accomplishment. Michael gave a speech, awkward and heartfelt, about how his mom was his hero. "You show us what strong looks like," he said, and Jennifer had to excuse herself to cry in the kitchen. August brought Michael's 11th birthday. He'd asked for a party, just his baseball team, nothing fancy. Jennifer rented space at the park, bought sheet cake from the grocery store, organized games and pizza. It was modest compared to the elaborate parties some kids had. But Michael's joy was uncomplicated. Watching him laugh with his teammates, seeing Emma run around with face paint and cotton candy, Jennifer understood something fundamental. They were going to be okay. Not immediately, not without continued work. Emma would need therapy for years, probably. Michael would carry trust issues into his teenage years, and beyond. Jennifer herself was still learning to make decisions without second-guessing every impulse, still working through the ways Marcus had rewired her sense of self. But they were intact. They were together. They were building something real from the ruins of what had broken. That night, after the kids fell asleep exhausted and sugar-crashed, Jennifer sat on the small balcony of their apartment. The Vietnamese restaurant below had closed for the night, and the street was quiet. She thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, desperate for partnership, willing to overlook warning signs, so afraid of being alone that she'd accepted crumbs disguised as love. She wasn't that woman anymore. Dr. Kim had asked her recently, "What do you want for your future?" Jennifer hadn't had an answer then, but sitting in the warm August air, she knew. She wanted to finish her degree. She wanted to give her kids a childhood they'd remember with joy instead of fear. She wanted to wake up without anxiety corkscrewing through her chest. She wanted to teach Michael and Emma that love shouldn't hurt, that boundaries were healthy, that their voices mattered. She wanted to forgive herself for the mistakes she'd made. And someday, not soon, but eventually, she wanted to trust again. Not desperately, not recklessly, but with the hard-won wisdom of someone who'd survived and learned. Someone who knew the difference between love and control, between partnership and possession. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lisa, her friend from the hospital. "Proud of you. You're doing amazing." Jennifer smiled, typing back, "Thanks. We're getting there." She was 35 years old, broke, exhausted, and rebuilding her entire life from scratch. She'd never felt more free.